Welcome back, dear viewers. This is our program, which is aired by AIC with partnership with HBA. So stay with us. I have a guest here who's working in supporting CISOs in Ethiopia, especially for inclusive democracy. He's going to tell us about himself and some of the activities that he's doing in Ethiopia. Welcome, sir, and tell us about.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. My name is Franco Wandabo, and I'm the resident country director for the International Republican Institute, based here in Ethiopia. Yeah, and it's obviously very good to be here during this particular day when we are commemorating the International Day for Democracy. I think as an institution, as IRI, we bring in, we are able to support and we bring in that leverage and that understanding of exactly how can we be able to work with civil society organizations in terms of supporting democratic principles in Ethiopia. For the last couple of years, Ethiopia has been making progress towards, moving to a democratic transitional phase. And therefore, it's very important that we see citizens, we see people being part of that process. And how can we be able to do that? That's one of the things that we are doing, as IRI, to be able to support civil society organizations who are basically the interlocutors, who are basically the people, closely working with the communities, with the citizens, to be able to bridge that gap with the national government, with the regional government, with the Kebeles, with the community leaders and things like that. So it is about citizen participation in democratic processes at all levels of all functions where we work, and also where we see that citizens have a critical voice to play in terms of promoting democratization and governance principles.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the role of CSOs in this inclusive democracy and the development of democratic cultures in a country? What are the roles of CSOs?
I think civil society organizations play a critical role. One, I've said that an interlocutor, basically a bridge between, them, the citizens and the government, because they are able to understand, they know the dynamics of how government works. So it's very important that they play that function, that interlocutor function, that linkage function. That's one. Two, civil society organizations can play a very critical role in terms of being able to mobilize citizens, being able to ensure that citizens are able to work as with one voice, with one unison voice on particular issues. It could be issues around health, governance, it could be issues around education governance, it could be issues about right to voting, it could be issues about right to registration to be able to vote, right to get an ID, and things like that. So they can be able to mobilize and they can be able to work, with citizens and also be able to bring together that voice, to be able to front the key issues that are affecting people and those impediments, addressing those impediments, that are basically affecting people's access to, to achieve or to gain their democratic right. So I think those are some of the key principles and areas that that civil societies can go to play in terms of promoting democratic principles in Ethiopia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you have special offers or any strategies that you are empowering or mainly working with women's societies which are working with women and people with disability?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think this year's theme for the International Day of Democracy focuses on inclusion. Inclusion of marginalized people, and that could be women, it could be people with disability, living with disability, it could be men in some contexts, it could be, diverse groups of people in our society. And therefore the question is, how can we ensure that, young people, youths, people with disability, and everybody else who we think is a marginalized group within our society is part of that ability to, is part of the process of gaining that democratic dividend. How can we ensure that happens? And I think number one is to be able to be the strongest voice for those particular people. We've had, in some of our cultures, in Ethiopia, for example, whereby even women are still having a problem to even get the basic right of having an identification document. Now, in 2026, we are going to be talking about elections. Now, how can we talk about elections if if the person doesn't have an identification document or a national ID or a document that she's going to use to get a right to vote?
Sure.
So those are the things that we are talking about. Being able to identify those gaps, being able to be the voice of those people and ensure that we bring across those issues to the table for discussion, and so that every citizen, whether it is a woman, whether it's a man, a person with disability, a young person, or anybody who has a right to vote, has access and ability to vote. Anybody who has a right to participate in governance process is able to take part in that particular governance process. And I think that is very important for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the aspiration of IRE in the coming in the coming election of Ethiopia?
I think our aspiration is to see that obviously all citizens participate in the in the governance processes. Our aspiration is to see that civil society organizations play a critical role in terms of amplifying the voices, bridging that gap that exists in terms of the right to participate in governance processes, and also the actual the actual voting process. So being able to see that citizens actually participate in the governance process, civil societies participate in the governance process, and obviously above all we want to see that everybody else enjoys the dividends of democracy. And democracy is not about leadership at the national level. Democracy goes down even to the smallest things like leadership at the Kebele and leadership at the community level.
Sure.
That's all that's all democratic principles.
In addition to this question, maybe
Yeah.
challenge that you are going to raise, because you were saying in Ethiopia democracy is flourishing or showing a kind of improvement.
Yeah.
Well, people are saying they are suffering of civil war, peace, and stuff.
Yeah.
So how come these two things are going together, plus what are the challenges that you
Yeah.
observe so far today?
Correct. Yeah, I think the most important thing is that Ethiopia, compared to other countries in the region, is a very young democratic country. If you ask, I mean, if you look at it, in the context of other of other countries in the region, it's a very young democratic country where the space has just opened up of recent, not about 6-7 years, maybe 5 years ago, for the participation of civil society organizations, political party participation in the governance processes. Citizens now can be able to say a little more than probably where they were before. So certainly, that road to to that democratic process has some bumpy areas, and I think those are that's part of growth, and that's part of that's part of the development process, or that's part of the democratic transition processes. So I think yes, there are those challenges that you have mentioned. There are sentiments that citizens have been able to share, but I think why is democracy there? For us to be able to make our voice heard. And how do we make our voice heard? To be able to participate, for example, in an election process. If we think that your policy doesn't align with my priority, then tomorrow I'll go out and vote you out. That's what democracy is all about. So I think yes, there are those challenges, but I think that is part of the growth process for democracy in any place, not only in Ethiopia, but any place.
Okay, thank you so much for the time we had.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, we will be back. Stay with us.